7 ketchups you should double-check, and 3 honest ones. Welcome back to Culinary Cipher, where we decode food labels, separate marketing from reality, and help you make informed food choices, one ingredient at a time. Here's something almost nobody checks on their most familiar bottle in the fridge. Ketchup seems simple, just tomatoes, right? It's on every table, in every burger joint, a staple you never think twice about. But that squeeze bottle is often sweetener than you'd guess, built on concentrate rather than tomatoes, and carrying a surprising load of sugar and salt for a condiment. So before you drown your fries again, let's double-check what's really in that ketchup, because the gap between a simple tomato condiment and a sweetened sauce is bigger than the classic bottle lets on. Because at Culinary Cipher, we don't judge ketchup by the tomato on the front, we judge it by what follows tomatoes on the back. The front sells the story. The ingredients tell the truth. The whole thing comes down to what's doing the flavor. Real, honest ketchup is tomatoes, a little vinegar, some sweetener, and spices. But many bottles lead heavily on sweeteners, especially high-fructose corn syrup, use tomato concentrate rather than actual tomatoes, and carry a lot of sodium to make the flavors pop. It's not dangerous, but a food most people think of as basically tomatoes is often closer to a sweet, salty sauce. Once you learn to read the sweetener, the tomato source, and the amounts, the bottle tells the real story. Let's double-check the 7 to watch, and then the 3 actually worth squeezing. Number 1. The added high-fructose corn syrup. This is the classic tell. Flip a standard ketchup bottle, and you'll often find high-fructose corn syrup high in the ingredients, sometimes along with regular sugar too. Ketchup is one of the sneakiest sources of added sweetener in the average fridge, because nobody thinks of it as a sweet food. Double-check for corn syrup and sugar near the top, because that beloved tangy sweet flavor is carried by a lot more sweetener than most people realize. Number 2. The added sugar per serving. A single tablespoon of ketchup can carry around a teaspoon of sugar, and almost nobody uses just 1 tablespoon. Pile it on a plate of fries or a couple of burgers, and the sugar adds up quickly. Double-check the sugar line and be honest about how much you actually use, because the real amount landing on your plate is usually several times the tidy serving on the label. Number 3. Tomato concentrate versus tomatoes. Many ketchups are made from tomato concentrate or paste reconstituted with water rather than from tomatoes directly. That's normal and not bad, but a ketchup that starts with real tomatoes or a high-quality concentrate tends to taste brighter and more genuinely tomato-forward. Double-check the tomato source, because tomato concentrate plus a lot of sweetener is a different, cheaper build than one led by real tomatoes. Number 4. The sodium load. Ketchup carries a fair amount of salt to balance the sweetness and boost flavor, and like the sugar, it stacks up fast when you use a generous squeeze. If you're watching sodium, this everyday condiment is an easy place to overshoot without noticing. Double-check the sodium line, because ketchup salt content is one of those quiet numbers that most people never think to check on something they use so casually. Number 5. The no high-fructose corn syrup versions. Some bottles proudly advertise no high-fructose corn syrup, which sounds like a real upgrade, and it can be. But check what replaced it, because it's often just regular sugar in a similar amount. You may be dodging the corn syrup while getting nearly the same sugar total. Double-check what the sweetener actually is, because no high-fructose corn syrup changes the type of sugar, not necessarily the amount. Number 6. The organic and simply bottles. These position themselves as the clean, wholesome choice, and their ingredient lists are often genuinely shorter and free of corn syrup. That's a real plus. But organic ketchup can still be quite sweet, just sweetened with organic cane sugar instead. Double-check the sugar even on the wholesome-looking bottles, because organic tells you how the ingredients were farmed, not how much sugar is in the squeeze. Number 7. The fancy front label words. Premium, gourmet, vine-ripened, and home-style carry no strict meaning and can sit on a very ordinary, sweetener-heavy ketchup. They're there to make a basic product feel special. Double-check by ignoring the adjectives and reading the ingredients and the sugar instead, because the only things that tell you what's really in the bottle are the tomato source and the sweetener, not the flattering words on the front. Now let's be fair, because the goal is to read labels, not to fear ketchup. Ketchup is a small part of most meals, and a squeeze on your fries isn't going to hurt you. A little sugar and salt in a condiment is normal and fine. The real point is awareness. Ketchup is a much bigger source of hidden sugar and sodium than people assume, especially for anyone using it heavily or feeding it to kids all week. Knowing that lets you choose a cleaner bottle, use a bit less, or reach for the lower sugar options, without giving up ketchup at all. It's also worth understanding just how easy it is to make a cleaner ketchup, because it reframes what the bottle is really selling. Ketchup is essentially tomato paste, a splash of vinegar, a modest amount of sweetener, and a few spices, all simmered together. You can make a batch at home in a few minutes and control exactly how sweet and how salty it is, ending up with something that tastes genuinely of tomato rather than mostly of sugar. That's not to say everyone should make their own, but knowing how simple real ketchup is makes it obvious how much the commercial versions lean on cheap sweetener to do the heavy lifting. Once you see that, the lower sugar bottles start to look a lot more appealing. It's also worth a quick word on the flavored and specialty ketchups crowding the shelves now, because they follow the same pattern with a twist. The spicy, smoky, curry, and jalapeno ketchups can be genuinely fun, but they're usually built on the same sweetener-heavy base with added flavorings on top, and sometimes even more sugar to balance the heat or spice. And the premium small batch bottles that cost several times as much aren't automatically lower in sugar. They're often just packaged more beautifully and flavored more interestingly. So the same rule applies right across the category. Flip any of them over, find the sweetener and the sugar count, and don't assume that spicier, fancier, or pricier means less sugar. Very often the boldest tasting bottles are leaning on just as much sweetener as the plain one, simply hidden behind a stronger flavor. The label is the only thing that tells the truth, no matter how gourmet the front looks. So here are 3 honest ones worth reaching for. First, a ketchup led by real tomatoes with modest sugar and a short label. Flip the bottle and look for tomatoes or a good tomato concentrate at the top, a reasonable sugar amount, no high fructose corn syrup, and a short list of recognizable ingredients. When the label reads like tomatoes, vinegar, a little sweetener, and spices, you found honest ketchup. Short, tomato forward, and not too sweet is the whole test. Second, a no sugar added or reduced sugar ketchup. If you use ketchup heavily, a lower sugar version can meaningfully cut the sweetener you're piling on, especially for a family that goes through bottles. Check that the flavor still works for you and that artificial sweeteners, if used, are ones you're comfortable with. For heavy users, this is one of the easiest ways to quietly remove a lot of added sugar from the week. Third, make your own or use whole tomatoes another way. A quick homemade ketchup from tomato paste, vinegar, a little sweetener, and spices gives you total control and a brighter, more genuine tomato flavor. And for some dishes, fresh tomato, salsa, or a simple tomato sauce does the job with far less sugar. When you want tomato flavor without the sweetener load, going closer to the actual tomato is the honest move. Here's the quick rule to carry into the store. The front will say premium, vine-ripened, and home-style, but ignore the words. Flip the bottle, check whether tomatoes or sweetener leads, look at the sugar and sodium, and know that no corn syrup often just means regular sugar. The moment you see high fructose corn syrup near the top and a hefty sugar count, you know exactly what you're really holding. It isn't dangerous and nobody's saying skip ketchup. The point is simpler than that. You deserve to know whether you're squeezing a tomato condiment or a sweet, salty sauce onto your plate. You don't need to toss the bottle tonight. Just double-check it next time you're standing in that aisle. Tomatoes first, modest sugar, no corn syrup, sensible sodium. That's the whole check. So go read the ingredients on the ketchup in your fridge right now. Find where the sweetener falls, check the added sugar, and tell me in the comments what you discover. I genuinely want to know how much sugar is hiding in your ketchup. Because at Culinary Cipher, we're not here to tell you what to eat. We're here to help you see past the packaging, understand what you're actually buying, and decide what's worth putting on your plate. Remember, the front sells the story. The ingredients tell the truth. Keep asking questions, keep reading labels, and always decode your plate.